October 17, 2016. On this day, a coalition of over 100,000 troops from various nations launched a massive operation. Their mission was clear and daunting: to wipe ISIS off the map and reclaim the city of Mosul. This coalition was composed of soldiers from different backgrounds, united by a common goal. They moved with determination, knowing the stakes were incredibly high, but no one was prepared for what happened next. The initial stages of the operation saw fierce resistance from ISIS fighters, who had entrenched themselves deeply within the city. Explosions rocked the urban landscape, turning once bustling streets into chaotic battlegrounds. The coalition forces faced unexpected attacks and ambushes at every turn, making progress slow and perilous. The battle for Mosul wasn't just another military offensive, it was hell on earth. The city, once a thriving metropolis, was now a war zone. Intense urban combat raged on, with soldiers engaging in heavy firefights amidst the rubble of devastated streets. The sounds of gunfire and explosions were a constant backdrop, creating an atmosphere of relentless tension and danger. It was a fight against an enemy that had nothing to lose, no rules, and no mercy. ISIS fighters, driven by a fanatical ideology, showed no signs of surrender. They fought with a brutal ferocity, employing guerrilla tactics and using civilians as human shields. The coalition forces had to navigate this treacherous environment, knowing that every corner could hide a deadly threat. The battle for Mosul was not just a test of military might, but a testament to the resilience and courage of those who fought to liberate the city. In June 2014, the world watched in shock and horror as ISIS, just a ragtag band of jihadists, overran Mosul in a matter of days. This was not just a military defeat, it was a catastrophic collapse that sent shockwaves across the globe. The city, once a bustling hub of culture and commerce, was now under the control of extremists who imposed their harsh interpretation of Sharia law. The Iraqi army? They abandoned the city without a fight. Despite having superior numbers and equipment, the soldiers were demoralized and unprepared for the ferocity of the ISIS assault. The speed and efficiency with which ISIS took over Mosul were unprecedented, leaving military analysts and global leaders scrambling to understand how such a well-equipped force could crumble so quickly. Thousands of soldiers dropped their weapons and ran, creating scenes of chaos and confusion. Military uniforms and equipment were left scattered on the ground, a stark symbol of the disarray and panic that had taken hold. The retreat was not just a tactical withdrawal, it was a rout, a complete and utter collapse of military order, leaving Mosul's 1.5 million residents at the mercy of some of the world's most brutal terrorists. Families were torn apart, homes were destroyed, and the social fabric of the city was ripped to shreds. The once vibrant streets of Mosul were now patrolled by militants, and the air was thick with fear and uncertainty. The fall of Mosul was not just a military disaster, it was a humanitarian catastrophe that would have lasting repercussions for years to come. ISIS didn't just capture Mosul, they turned it into a city of nightmares. Public executions, beheadings, mass graves, anyone who resisted was slaughtered, women were enslaved, children were forced to become suicide bombers, and the world? It did nothing. For years. By 2016, ISIS had turned Mosul into a fortress of terror, an urban death trap filled with suicide bombers, snipers, and an underground tunnel system designed for ambushes. But the Iraqi government, backed by a US-led coalition, finally had enough. They were coming to take the city back, at any cost. On October 17, 2016, the Iraqi army, Kurdish Peshmerga, and elite counter-terrorism forces, supported by American and coalition airstrikes, launched the assault on Mosul. On paper, the numbers looked insane. 100,000 coalition troops versus just 5,000 ISIS fighters. A total mismatch, right? Wrong. ISIS wasn't fighting a conventional war, they rigged entire neighborhoods with explosives, they used tunnels to ambush troops, they strapped suicide bombs to children and sent them into military convoys. They even had weaponized drones dropping grenades on soldiers from above. This wasn't just a battle, it was an apocalypse. What should have been a quick victory turned into a brutal, grinding nightmare. The deeper Iraqi troops pushed into Mosul, the more they realized they had stepped into a trap. Urban warfare is the most dangerous type of combat. Every street was a sniper's paradise, every doorway could hide a suicide bomber, every basement was a tunnel leading to an ambush. ISIS knew they couldn't win a traditional fight, so they turned Mosul into a hellish maze of destruction. They'd fire from one building, then disappear underground, only to pop up miles away and attack again. But the worst? Suicide vehicles. Armored with metal plates, stuffed with explosives, and driven by jihadists with nothing to lose, these rolling bombs obliterated entire units in seconds. No bullet could stop them. No tank shell could destroy them fast enough. ISIS was literally turning themselves into human weapons. Mosul wasn't just a battlefield, it was a prison for over 1 million civilians. And ISIS? They used them as human shields. If a civilian tried to escape, they were executed on the spot. If families refused to let ISIS fighters use their homes, they were shot. Thousands of innocent people were caught between two impossible choices: stay and die, or run and risk getting killed in the crossfire. Coalition airstrikes had one mission: wipe out ISIS. But when you're bombing a city packed with civilians, the collateral damage was devastating. Whole families were buried alive, neighborhoods were erased. By the time Mosul was finally freed, thousands of innocent lives had been lost. By July 2017, after 9 months of non-stop fighting, Iraqi forces finally cornered the last ISIS fighters in the old city of Mosul. But these were the most fanatical, most suicidal extremists left. They weren't surrendering. They were fighting to the death. With their backs against the wall, ISIS blew up the Great Mosque of Al-Nuri, the very place where they had once declared their so-called caliphate. It was their final message to the world: if they couldn't have Mosul, no one could. On July 10, 2017, the Iraqi Prime Minister officially declared Mosul liberated. But at what cost? Tens of thousands dead, a city reduced to rubble, and the scars of war that will never heal. The Battle of Mosul was a defeat for ISIS, a significant milestone in the fight against terrorism. The city, once a stronghold for the extremist group, saw intense military operations. Iraqi forces, backed by coalition airstrikes, advanced through the city, street by street, building by building. The battle was fierce and the cost was high, but was it truly a victory? The aftermath of the battle left many questioning the true cost of this so-called victory. Soldiers who fought bravely now look out over a city in ruins, pondering the price paid. The destruction is overwhelming and the human cost is even more staggering. Mosul was left in ruins. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble, and the infrastructure was decimated. The once vibrant streets are now filled with the debris of war, a stark reminder of the battle that took place. Thousands of innocent lives were lost. Families were torn apart, and the community was left to mourn the countless victims. Mass graves stand as a somber testament to the human toll, and the injured continue to suffer, both physically and emotionally. And even today, ISIS cells still lurk in the shadows, waiting for their next chance. The threat has not been entirely eliminated, and the fear of resurgence remains. Soldiers continue to patrol the deserted streets, ever vigilant, knowing that the fight is far from over. Was it worth it? Or was it just another chapter in an endless war? The cycle of violence seems unending, with each victory leading to another battle. The soldiers are weary, the cities are devastated, and the hope for lasting peace seems elusive. Comment below and let's discuss. What do you think about the cost of victory in Mosul? Is there a way to break this cycle of violence, or are we doomed to repeat history? Your thoughts and opinions matter. Subscribe for more shocking war stories. Stay informed and join the conversation as we explore the true cost of war and the impact it has on our world.